name's Ruby and today I'm going to be telling you the 138 books which I read in 2018. So I keep all of my books logged in this Matilda notebook and I have been documenting the books that I read since January 2014. So I've got a good log of every book that I've read since then, and I really like keeping them all in one place because it means that I can refer back and I can have a look over books that I've read if I'm thinking of recommending books. For the whole of last year I used Goodreads as well, so all of my books are documented on Goodreads. But on Goodreads it comes out that I've read 107 books, I believe, because I include short stories as individual books in this journal. I'm literally just going to go through and read these to you because there are so many and I don't have the books because some of them are on Kindle, some of them are library books, and then at the end I'm just going to tell you the top 5 books that I read this year. So I'm going to go through the books first and then I'm going to come back to the short stories. Matilda by Roald Dahl, Maximum Security by Robert Muchamore, Goldfish Boy by Lisa Thompson, Moby Dick by Herman Melville, Zela Green by Vanessa Curtis, What Happened to My Sister by Elizabeth Flock, CENSHt by Radwan Nassar, Famous Last Words by Katie Allender, Philosophy of Religion by John Hick, The Blood of the Lamb by Peter de Vries, The Maids by Jean Genet, John Donne by Stevie Davies, which is from the collection Writers and Their Works, and it basically provides a critical account of a poet or an author. Pronoun by Evan Placey, The Memoirs of Hillary Clinton, and that's her Hard Choices memoirs, so I think it's the second set of memoirs. We Need to Talk About Kevin by Lionel Shriver, 13 Minutes by Sarah Pisborough, Huis by Sartre, The Secret Life of Bees by Sue Monk Kidd, From Belson to Buckingham Palace by Paul Oppenheimer, Spot the Difference by Juno Dawson, In Therapy by Susie Orbach, The Magician's Nephew by C.S. Lewis, The Clockwork Sparrow by Catherine Woodfine, Circles of Hell by Dante, Finding Perfect by Ellie Swartz, The Smell of Other People's Houses, If on a Winter's Night a Traveller by Italo Calvino, Counting by Sevens by Holly Goldberg Sloan, The Conservationist by Nadine Gordimer, Before I Fall, What I Was by Meg Rossoff, Goodbye Mallory Towers by Pamela Cox, Let the Right One In, Wave Me Goodbye, The King's General by Daphne du Maurier, Enid Blyton by Gillian Baverstock, which is an account of Enid Blyton's life by her daughter, Night by Elie Wiesel, Miracles from Heaven by Christy Bean, Tender as the Night by F. Scott Fitzgerald, Everything Everything by Nicole Yoon, A Long Long Way by Sebastian Barry, Light by Jay Asher, The Youngest Girl in the Fifth by Angela Brazel, Massey's Summer Collection by Lucy Harrison, La Casa de Bernada, which I read twice, Beck, Birdsong by Sebastian Fawkes, Titanic Survivor by Violet Jessup, Make Your Bed, Quarantine by Jim Crace, Run Zan Run by Catherine McPhail, I think, Paradise Lost by John Milton, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, Dial El Fallujah by Lucy Harrison, The Bridge of San Luis Rey, Northern Lights by Philip Pullman, Wool Jumpers by Peter Scheider, Rethinking Life and Death by Peter Singer, The Grass is Singing by Doris Lessing, The Uncommoners, Childhood at Green Hedges by Imogen Smallwood, Antigone by Sophocles, Blithe Spirit by Noel Coward, The Chimes by Charles Dickens, Allegiant by Veronica Roth, The Martian, Hot Milk, Shell Shock in France 1914 to 1918 by Charles S. Myers, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens, The Art of Being Normal, A Little Princess, The Myth of Mars and Venus by Deborah Cameron, The Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes, Marcello in the Real World by Francisco X. Stork, Gregory and the Grimbuckle by Melanie Schubert, The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, Bullies Like Me by Lindy Zart, Cat's Eye by Margaret Atwood, Out of My Mind, Eleanor Oliphant in the Real World, Master Humphrey's Clock by Charles Dickens, Speechless by Hannah Harrington, Philosophical Investigations by Ludwig Wittgenstein, Obsessive Compulsions and Religious Practices by Sigmund Freud, Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice, Trump's Christmas Carol by Watt T. Dickens, Positive a Memoir by Paige Rule, The Child That Books Built by Frances Spufford, Torn by Kat Clark, The Live Tree by Frances Hardinge, When God Was a Rabbit by Sarah Winman, The Little Book of Hygge by Mike Viking, The Light Jar by Lisa Thompson. So they're all of the books that I read this year, and now I'm going to go through and just tell you the short stories that I read. So the first collection of short stories was by James Joyce, and it was part of his collection Dubliners. So the short stories in that were The Sisters, An Encounter, Araby, Eveline, After the Race, Two Gauntlets, The Boarding House, A Little Cloud, Counterparts, Clay, A Painful Case, Ivy Day, A Mother, Grace, and The Dead. Then I read the short story The Oval Mirror by Edgar Allan Poe. Then I read a few short stories by Neil Gaiman. So I read The Case of 4 and 20 Blackbirds, Troll Bridge, Don't Ask Jack, How to Sell Ponty Bridge, October in the Chair, Chivalry, The Price, How to Talk to Girls at Parties, Sunbird. And yes, they're the Neil Gaiman ones, and that was from his collection M is for Magic. These ones are from Mystery and Mayhem, which was edited by Catherine Woodfine, I believe. So that's Emily and the Detectives by Susie Day, Rain on My Parade by Ellen Callalot, The Mystery of the Green Room by Clementine Beauvoir, The Mystery of Diablo Canyon Circle by Caroline Lawrence, Mel Foster and the Hound of the Baskervilles by Julia Golding, and Dazzle, Dog Biscuits and Disaster by Kate Pankhurst. So then these ones are all from the Cambridge Companion to the Victorian Novel. So these are technically essays, but I'm including them anyway. The Victorian Novel and Its Readers by Kate Flint, Business of Victorian Publishing by Simon Elliott, Aesthetics of the Victorian Novel by Linda M. Shires, Industrial Culture and the Victorian Novel by Joseph W. Childers, Gender in the Victorian Novel by Nancy Armstrong, Sexuality and the Victorian Novel by Jeff Nunokawa, Race and the Victorian Novel by Patrick Brantlinger, Detection in the Victorian Novel by Ronald R. Thomas, Sensation and the Fantastic in the Victorian Novel by Lyon Pickett, Intellectual Debate in the Victorian Novel by John Kusich, I think, Dickens, Melville and A Tale of Two Countries by Robert Weisbunch. And then there's one other essay which I read, which was Dante in 17th Century Literature, and I didn't document who this was by. But that was basically just talking about how Dante appears in 17th century literature. And I've read other critical essays obviously, but I've just included them if they're a bit longer or if they're not necessarily related to my school specification, because I read a lot of academic essays for my English coursework. So now I'm going to tell you which were the best books that I read this year, and I think I've marked a couple more than 5, I'm not sure, maybe about 8, and I'm just going to read these ones to you. And if you want me to do a review or talk about these books in any more depth, then please let me know. So I really enjoyed We Need to Talk About Kevin, which I don't think is that surprising because it's been highly critically acclaimed. I think it won the Man Booker in 2007 or 2006. Well, I'm pretty sure that everyone pretty much already knows what it's about, but it's about a boy called Kevin, who at the age of 16, he leads a school shooting which kills a number of other students and a cafeteria worker. And it's talking about his childhood, so a lot of it's from his mother's point of view, and it's that whole nature versus nurture debate. Is it Kevin's fault that was Kevin born like this, or is it a result of his upbringing? It's a fascinating read. I also really loved From Belson to Buckingham Palace by Paul Oppenheimer. I took part in the Lessons from Auschwitz project, which is run across the UK. One thing that we got to do as part of the project was listen to Rudy Oppenheimer, and he gave his testimony to us, which was incredible. But basically, Paul Oppenheimer is his brother. I already knew the story because of the testimony that I'd heard from Rudy. However, hearing his brother's point of view was actually really interesting. Sad read, but it's also very inspiring. The next book that I really loved was Counting by Sevens by Holly Goldberg Sloan, and Willow in this is just such a lovable character. She's so precocious, and I really love books where you learn things as you're going along, so it's fiction but you're learning things because the characters keep on saying little facts. I also really loved Rethinking Life and Death by Peter Singer. It's him talking about specific issues to do with life and death and where the barrier lies. So when is someone actually dead? Also, is abortion ever okay? Is euthanasia ever okay? And it's just a really interesting debate to think about. So the next book that I really loved was The Grass is Singing by Doris Lessing, and this is set in South Africa and it's exploring racism, but it's done really interestingly because it takes a character who you'd expect to be nice and it kind of twists them, and you get this inverted image of them as a result of the racism. Then I really loved Positive, a Memoir by Paige Rule. It's such an inspiring story, but it's terrible. So Paige was born HIV positive and nobody ever knew about it. It wasn't spread around, but then when she was in middle school, she told her best friend and word got around and she was terribly bullied. And these are her memoirs, her talking about what happened. But I think what's most inspiring is the fact that she was able to use her experiences to really spread awareness, and it is just incredible the things that she went through and the prejudice that she faced. I think it's something that you should read. I've put down Cat's Eye as one of my favourites, but it's actually because I reread it. So Cat's Eye is my favourite book of all time. So then the last book that I've written down as one of my favourites is Bullies Like Me by Lindy Zart. Oh my goodness, this book was incredible. So I love bullying books, and this is probably the best young adult bullying book I've ever read. Actually just the best young adult book, period. And it's not that famous. I bought it as an ebook, but I've never seen it in bookshops before. But I loved it. I have filmed a review of it actually, which I will be uploading shortly. So I document everything on Goodreads, and my Goodreads account is Ruby Granger if you wanted to go and follow me there. Please don't feel obliged to, but if you wanted to have a look at my reviews or see what I'm reading, I do keep my Goodreads updated. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed, and have a productive week. And today's random act of kindness is to recommend a book to somebody.